As you recall, last week, I directed the Secretary to the President and Cabinet, Mr. Zangazanga Chikos, to effect the interdiction of the controlling officers whose clusters I had faulted for appearing before my task force on COVID-19 without backing documents for their expenditure reports. Similarly, I directed him to also interdict the controlling officers whose clusters had not been complying with my instruction for them to submit weekly expenditure reports on their allocation of the money disbursed to them by Treasury last month. The interdictions paved way for an independent audit of the 6.2 billion kwacha, which was spent on our national response to COVID-19. Between September, and December last year. The audit itself will take about a month to complete, as it involves two phases. The first of which will focus on validation of the report from the Presidential Task Force, while the second will focus on investigating how every kwacha was spent, by whom, and whether the spending was lawful. Upon completion of the independent audit, any public officers associated with wrongdoing will be dealt with and face the law. To effect these directives, I tasked the Secretary to consult with the Solicitor General, the Acting Auditor General, and others to ensure that the letters of interdiction to these cluster heads are written in a manner that is compliant with the law. And now, I have called Mr. Chikosi here to publicly confirm that this process has been completed as I directed. Mr. Secretary, can you confirm that these two directives have been acted on?
Your Excellency, I confirm. Thank you, sir.
Meanwhile, last week, thank you. Last week I had also announced my decision to appoint Dr. Wilfred Jalamiran as the new co-chair of the COVID-19 task force. He joins me here today to give you an update on three things: what the task force is doing differently to ensure regular and ongoing accountability of the COVID-19 funds being used by clusters, what the latest statistics are on treatment centers, beds, oxygen, testing sites, testing kits, and health personnel, and a warning about social behaviors that medical experts are calling on all of us to desist from in order to halt the spread of the virus. Doctor, you may proceed.
Your Excellency, I can confirm on behalf of the task force that we intend to build on the successes that have already been realized, but to also ensure that there is accountability and maximization of available resources. And to do this, we intend first and foremost to safeguard the utilization of the COVID-19 funds through the following methods, among others: improving coordination, planning, and monitoring, which will include updating of the National Response Plan, reviewing and streamlining the number of clusters that have been set up before for responding to the epidemic, 1,188 healthcare workers have been recruited, and authority to recruit 466 more in central hospitals and 266 more at the district hospitals in peripheral hospitals has already been received. Interviews for these are scheduled and they should happen by the end of February, which means that by the end of February, there will be 1,449 new health personnel that will have been recruited to beef up the human resource capacity for responding to this epidemic. But like His Excellency mentioned, there are some areas of concern, and these the task force is going to work with relevant partners to address. First and foremost, suboptimal wearing of face masks in public places. Secondly, failure to keep distances when people are in crowded places. And finally, of late, particularly in the past week, widespread information regarding safety of COVID-19 vaccines, which is in most cases incorrect and misleading. All these are going to be part of the agenda that the new task force is going to be following. I submit, Your Excellency.
Thank you most kindly, Doctor. Let me proceed by encouraging you to continue adhering to preventive measures, because it is clear that these measures work. Over the past 7 days, 9,447 COVID-19 tests were conducted nationwide, of which 1,430 were positive, representing an average positivity rate of 15%, 2% lower than the week before. Our goal is to get the positivity rate down to 5% or lower, because that is when we can safely ease restrictions and allow the economy to breathe. To get there, we still need to cut the positivity rate down by 10% or more. That means we each must keep complying with the restrictions that are currently in place. One piece of good news is that in view of this downward trend in new infections, we have decided to reopen all schools across the country tomorrow, 22nd February 2021. This reopening applies to both private and public schools and includes learners who have been selected to various secondary schools to start Form 1. Because schools have been closed for the past 5 weeks, the Ministry of Education has revised the academic calendar for public schools to ensure that students receive adequate teaching to meet curriculum requirements. The details of the new calendar have already been sent to all educational institutions, as well as a reminder for the COVID-19 Health Committee of each school to ensure that all preventive guidelines we have trained them to enforce are followed to the letter. This decision restores a measure of normalcy for our learners and ensures that the pandemic does not derail their development. Notwithstanding, our long-term strategy for returning all aspects of our society to normal includes the rollout of a vaccine to protect the general population. The African Union's envoy on Africa's response to COVID-19 has guaranteed us 100,000 vaccines for frontline health workers. Although the delivery of that consignment has been delayed by 7 days, we are on track to receive it by the end of this month, along with 1.5 million doses of the vaccine that we expect to receive around the same time. This means that sometime in the month of March, a vaccination program will be rolled out across the country to ensure that this dark night of daily COVID-19 deaths eventually comes to an end. This past week alone, 54 people died of COVID-19 across our land. And we mourn these losses with the bereaved families and wish God's peace on the souls of the departed. As we come to terms with these deaths, I must strongly condemn the recent beating of ambulance drivers and health personnel during their routine delivery of remains of those who died of COVID-19. It is to the credit of our health workers that we are able to bury those who die of COVID-19 in a way that does not expose the living to infection. It is also to their credit that we take comfort in the recovery of 2,861 people in the past week. No attack on our health personnel will be tolerated. Let me sign off with a word of encouragement. While the state of national disaster continues and has now lasted 40 days, it may be difficult to see that we are winning this war, but we are. And if we stay the course of prevention, treatment, and immunization, a day is coming when we shall be able to gather again, laugh again, play again, hug again, celebrate again, travel again, shake hands again, and do rallies again. As it is written in Scriptures, weeping may endure for a night, but joy cometh in the morning. It is in this spirit of hope that I want to thank the COVID-19 response by private citizens, which closes its fundraising initiative tonight, as well as other private initiatives all over the country, for demonstrating what it means to not give in to despair in times of crisis. In fact, I commend them for the example they have set to other citizens of how to be part of a solution instead of thinking that government has all the solutions, as well as the example they have set for those in the civil service of how to render a public service in a manner that is accountable and collaborative. It has given me hope that the task force that the Vice President, Right Honorable Dr. Saulos Chilima, formed during this past week to review and redesign the civil service towards greater efficiency and accountability will draw lessons from private sector initiatives like these. In my next COVID-19 update, which will be my last until further notice, I will outline the measures my administration has developed to cushion the poor against the economic aftershocks of the pandemic, to revitalize the business sector, and to get us back on track with our agenda for transforming our country. God bless you for listening, and God bless Malawi as we keep it the warm heart of Africa. Good night. Amalawi azanga mukumbukira kuti sabata latha ndidalamulira kuti asekretary mu office ya president cabinet azangazanga chikhoso kuti ayimitse ntchito za atsogoleri ena amene akhala akugwiritsa ntchito ndalama za COVID. Izi ndapanga ndi cholinga chofuna kukhala ndi kafukufuku wokwanira wa mmene ndalama za COVID-19 zokwanira 6.2 billion kwacha zidagwirira ntchito chaka chatha. Kafukufuku ameneyu aunika maripoti ochokera kwa komiti yayikulu yoyang'anira COVID-19 ngati ali wolondola, komanso aunika mwatsatanetsatane mmene ndalama zonse zidagwirira ntchito. Ntchito imeneyi itenga mwezi. Lero ndawayitana achikhosi kuti atsimikizire kuti adachitadi zimene ine ndawalamulira, ndipo apereka umboni kuti zidachitika. Ndidalamulanso kuti Dr. Wilfred Chalamila Nkhoma tsopano atenge udindo otsogolera task force yoyang'anira matenda a COVID-19. Ndawayitana lero kuti atiunikire mmene ntchitoyi ikuyendera kumbali yokhudza kayendetsedwe ka ndalama komanso kumbali yokhudza za chipatala, ndi afotokoza momveka bwino. Tsono okondedwa, ndikufuna kuti ndikutsimikizireni kapena ndikudziwitseni kuti ndondomeko zimene tidayika zija zikuthandiza kwambiri, ndipo chiwerengero cha anthu opezeka ndi kachirombo ka COVID pa sabata imodzi chikutsika. Pano chafika pa 15%. Pa chifukwa ichi boma likutsegulanso masukulu kuyambira mawa, komabe cholinga chathu nchakuti mlingowu ufike pa 5% kapena kuchepera pamenepo, kuti tibwererenso ku moyo wathu wakale. Ngati njira imodzi yothetsera mliri umenewu, boma lidayitanitsa kale katemera. Poyamba, katemerayu apatsidwa kwa ogwira ntchito mzipatala, chifukwa iwo ndo amene ali pa chiopsezo chachikulu koposa tonse. Ndipo mwezi wa Marichi katemera ameneyu adzayamba kuperekedwa m'maboma onse. Tataya okondedwa ochuluka, abale wathu, abwezi wathu, komabe pakadali pano anthu ochira ndi ambiri koposa odwala. Ndiye tisataye mtima, chifukwa masiku akubwerawa moyo wathu ubwereranso mchimake tikalimbikitsa zomwe tuchita panozi. Monga mmene mawu a Mulungu amanenera, ngakhale kulira kungachezere usiku wonse, chimwemwe chidza mamawa. Ambuye akudalitseni chifukwa cha kumvetsera kwanu, komanso adalitse dziko lathu. Zikomo.